this morning during the presentation. She said, we mustn't just keep looking outside. We have to start looking inside. And it's when we're touched inside that the learning process really starts. Now, you can make your own judgment of what kind of teacher you are. But there are 3 types of teachers that we can talk about. The first is the teacher that's always complaining. Oh, it's such a hard job being a teacher. I have the worst class. They drive me crazy. And we go on complaining. Then there is the kind of teacher that is always explaining. There is a philosophy, a theory for everything. It's not bad, but it is not the best. There are the teachers that are full of love, and they inspire. When you teach from the heart, if you teach head to head, it doesn't work. You know, there was a professor in California who was giving the same lectures every day in a university, and he'd been doing this for many years. And he got fed up with this teaching every day in the same lectures, month after month, year after year. So he decided that he would find a shortcut. So one day he told his students, I have made a really nice recording of my teaching, of my lectures, and I'm going to give it to you. So make sure next time you come tomorrow, you get this recording. And you come and you listen, and you can take notes. So the next day they came, and everybody was there on time. They had their notebooks. They were listening to the tape recorder. Everyone was happy. The professor was very happy. He could go and have a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. He said, this is a good life. I don't have to do all this lecturing. And every once in a while he'd go back and he'd check. Students were there taking notes very well. So then he started to think of other things he could do rather than going to the university. So he decided to go and play golf and do a few other things. So sometimes many days passed. And he came back one day and he thought, I better check my students. And he walked down the hall and he could hear his voice, and he thought, oh great, they're listening to my lectures. But when he went into the room, his tape recorder was there, but around his tape recorder were many other tape recorders. There were no students. Because if you are teaching from a tape recorder, you teach to another tape recorder. But if you are teaching a child, you have to teach from the heart. There is no other way. Yes, as adults we can learn from other things, and we can learn sometimes from internet and many other things. But children, they need to learn heart to heart. And so this is a good lesson. When I was in Malaysia once, I was working with a team of other lecturers, and one of my colleagues, her husband is inspector of schools, and she is a teacher trainer. And she showed me something that they had found in the notebook of a child in Malaysia. I'd like to share with you. We walk into the classroom and take our seats at our desks. The lesson begins. She stands before us like a mountain of stone, a worn face, looking for faults. You just think, what the children must feel. Before we had the school, I was working with slum children in Bangkok. And these children had a lot of problems, obviously. And their biggest problem was their families. And I wanted to find out more about their families. I wanted to find out, what the children's backgrounds were like. But sometimes you cannot ask directly. It's painful. So I came up with a game. And I bought these little animals, these little rubber animals. And I took them into the class, and I had a whole bunch of them, all different kinds of animals. And so I said, today we're going to play a game. I want each one of you to find the animal that is most like yourself. So they were very clever, these children. They knew exactly what they were like. Many of them took monkeys. Some of them took quiet animals, the ones who were very withdrawn. Then I took it a step further. And I said, imagine your family. I'd like you to put all the animals as your family, your mother, your father. And it was so interesting. Fathers, we had many lions and bears, but sometimes, withdrawn animals as well. Mothers, there were a lot of cows, deer, but sometimes we had tigers also. And so I learned a lot about the children's backgrounds. But then one day there was a little boy. He was playing in the where I was teaching, and he had all the animals lined up like this. And in front he had this big giraffe. Giraffe. So I asked him, what are these animals? And he said, it's my class. And he told me each one, the name of each child in his class, this animal, this animal. I said, fine. What about the giraffe? He said, that's you. And it made me very aware of just our size, for instance. What an effect that has on the children. You've got a little kid here and you have a great big me, and immediately there is the power. You have the power of us being adults, you have the power of us being, bigger than them. So we have to be very sensitive of that. When I was giving a workshop in Spain, I was in Barcelona, and I was staying in a very nice family's house, and the children went to the American school, the international school in Barcelona. And while I was staying there, one of the days, one of the boys brought back a book of poetry. And he said, this has just been printed by the school. And it was near Mother's Day. So my feeling was, these are beautiful poems about mother. Oh boy, I was in for a big shock. And I actually ended up in tears after reading many of these poems because of the content of them. And one of the poems is this about teachers. I will show you. And all I'm surprised about is they published it. If anybody wrote this about me, I wouldn't publish it. It says, teachers. Sorry, I'm noisy. Mean, rotten, tons of work. Harsh, too much, why? What good? Nothing, nonsense, why? Blah. I don't like teachers. Just kidding. Well, probably just kidding is there, otherwise they get in trouble. So you can feel from this kind of poem what the child is feeling. Yes, they say I'm just kidding, but I don't think so. The founder of some of the well-known universities in India has said this: education does not end with the accumulation of information. It must result in the transformation of the habits, character, and aspirations of the individual. Knowledge has to be tested in daily action. Now, we need to have a very good and very close relationship with the children. Here in this school, it's easy because we live together. We're here 24 hours a day, and so it's like another family, that builds up. I know that when it's a day school, it's more difficult because the children are only there for a few hours, then they go home. But still, I think especially today, where children have a lot of problems at home, and also parents don't have time. We're going to look at that a little later, some of the problems that are facing parents today. But one of the main problems, they don't have time. And so the children, more and more, are under the care of teachers. Now, I want to do a little bit of group work, because I don't like one-way traffic. I like two-way traffic, okay? So the way we understand is when we actually have a practical application. So I want you to think. I'm going to pose you 3 questions, and I'm going to request the ones at the back who have already been through this, if you can help with some of the groups, okay? We'll have groups, say, of 5 people, and I'd like you just to sit a little close to each other and think about what I'm going to ask you. Discuss it. I'm going to give you about 5 minutes, 10 minutes to discuss, and then you tell me, we'll present your answers. Now, I'm going to ask you 3 questions. The first is, what is the role of the teacher? The second is the responsibility of the teacher. And the third is how to be an effective teacher. Now, you will find that some of the answers will overlap, like role and responsibility. It doesn't matter. I just want you to think and to discuss a little bit.
All of the group?
So, we're going to make, how many people in here altogether? 28, and then all you guys, so how many? About 32, right? Okay, so let's have, say, 5 groups. About 6 in a group, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. One group. So you just sit a little close to each other and talk. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The ones you can turn around. Turn around with those at the back. So please make groups of 6. Yeah. And if there's, maybe you can help them a little bit. Okay. Okay, let's start. Can you all come back to the table, please? And we're going to start first with the role of the teacher. So let's hear just say one thing from each group to start with. Just the role of the teacher. You'd like to say?
The role of the teacher is facilitator. Whenever the teacher is facilitator, there are two jobs: plan and organize class, organize activities of the class.
So facilitator.
Yes. And then the guide.
Okay, wait, just one thing.
Just
okay.
okay.
Yeah. All right, next group, please. Thank you.
All right, according to our group, the role of the teacher. Teacher is the role model for the student in good way. The second, the responsibility.
Okay, just one. Next group, please.
Okay, thank you. According to our group, the second question, what is the role is the teacher? Number one, to be good example, inspirator, facilitator,
Okay.
teacher is an artist.
Okay, you find something that the other groups have not said.
Okay. To be good example,
A good example.
teacher is an artist.
Okay, thank you. Next group.
Sorry. Teacher as agent of change.
Huh?
Agent of change. Agent of change.
Agent of changes.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you. A teacher is to be taught the head student and then always enjoy. Helpful, yes, handful, like handful.
Okay, good. There is never one answer to anything, so everything you've said is right. I have some other ideas as well that I'd like to share with you. Which was said already, to be a good example. To draw out the human values from within the child. See, it is not just putting in. What we're trying to do now is to draw out. To impart knowledge, that is part of our role, that we have to give knowledge. To be a good classroom manager. We can have all kinds of information and all kinds of activities, but if we cannot manage the class, everything is gone. So we need to be a good classroom manager. To be a good leader. To be a good facilitator. And in fact, to play all roles. I remember when I was a child, my father wouldn't let us have television in the house. And I used to think he was very mean. But now I thank him with all my heart. Because we all learnt other things. We all became musicians, we all became artists, we all became actors, because we had to do other things other than watch television. But I was quite naughty. And sometimes I go to the neighbor's house to watch television. And I remember one advertisement that I saw when I was very young, but it had a very big effect on me. And it was selling some product, I don't know, some cleaning product that would help women in their houses when they're cleaning the houses. And the way they were selling the product was to show that the mother is very busy. She has so much work to do that she needs this product, right? And the way they showed the woman as being very busy is that she had all these hats. So she had the hat, her mother's hat, she had a teacher's hat, she had the nurse's hat, she had the driver's hat, sometimes she had to put on the policeman's hat, and all these different roles that the mother has to play. The cook's hat, the cleaner's hat. And I think today that teachers also have to put on many hats. Sometimes we have to be like a parent, for children who don't have a lot of love at home. We have to be many different roles. So we have to be very flexible and be ready to take on different roles. But at the same time, be clear that what our role is, our inner role. We have to be clear of that. Okay, let's go on. Oh, before we go on, let's just see. If we want to be a good example, this was number 1. What do we have to do? First, we have to be. Then we do it. Then we tell it. What we tend to do is just tell. But we have to do it. We have to practice it. We have to put it into action. Then we can talk about it. Okay? A teacher can be compared to a water tank, and the students to the taps connected to it. As is the water in the tank, so is the water that comes from the taps. So, whatever we are is what we're going to pass on to our children. And it's not just what we do in the classroom, it's what we are as people. And this is what we call the silent teacher.